Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
I've been staying away from a lot of the online discourse about the Browns quarterback room because, like a lot of this stuff that you hear ranges from uninformed or severely uninformed to just straight up unhinged, no matter who is supporting or not supporting whatever guy that you want to support. I've seen unhinged anti-Sanders takes, unhinged pro-Sanders takes, very uninformed anti-Browns takes, very uninformed pro-Brown. It's just a mess, right? But there is one thing I want to talk about that I have noticed, and it has to do with one specific player, and that is Sherrod Sanders, that I do like that the Cleveland Browns are doing, that I don't think is getting enough credit, or people are so caught up in whatever line they've drawn in this pointless battle that they've made up for themselves, to really even acknowledge. It just becomes another thing that people argue about. But I, for one, appreciate how the Browns are seeming to handle Sherrod Sanders. There are a number of things that, I was concerned about with the Browns taking Shedeur in the 5th round. And it didn't really have anything to do with the level of talent that I think Shedeur is. I think Shedeur is a steal in the 5th round. I advocated for the Browns to take him in the 2nd round. I would have been happy if they took him in the 2nd round. I would have been happy if they took him in the 3rd round. I've been happy if they took him in the 4th round. So, you're damn right. I'm thrilled that they got him in the 5th round, right? So I am not somebody coming into this who does not think that Sherrod Sanders has no potential, or somebody who's not a believer in Sherrod Sanders. I think that Shedeur can be a proficient and efficient starting quarterback in the NFL, right? When I did my draft comps for him, I think Tua was my ceiling for him. I think he could be a version of Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL. And I had like Teddy Bridgewater as kind of the mid-case scenario for him. And I think he lands somewhere in between Teddy and Tua. And somewhere between Teddy and Tua is a starting quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be who he is from day one for the rest of his career. I know the emergence of some rookie quarterbacks over the last couple of years has made people think that like quarterback play just happens and it happens immediately. But this is something that takes time. And Sherrod Sanders feels like one of those quarterback prospects that are going to take some time to get to where the peak could be for him, right? Like, I think that might be what's realistic, right? And I think that's part of the intrigue with Shedeur, for me at least, is he's not one of these dudes who are just so physically talented that if those skills translate positively to the NFL, they will have a light transition to the league, right? Jaden Daniels, super talented guy. Who else? CJ Stroud, super talented guy, some of the best arm talent we've ever seen. All of that stuff is there for a player to succeed. Also, another thing that happens for those players who have those breakout huge rookie years is they're in a situation where day one on the roster, they are the guy that the team builds everything around. Sherrod Sanders is in a different situation. The Cleveland Browns are not treating Sherrod Sanders like the number 2 pick in the draft. They're treating Sherrod Sanders like a non-first round pick, which means Shedeur is here to do what the Browns want him to do. The Browns aren't going to sit here at this point of his career and say to themselves, let's just build the whole thing around Sherrod Sanders. That would be a ridiculous thing to do around a 5th round pick. There is some people who want that to still be what the Browns do, right? I've noticed this from some of the very, very pro Sanders people in the audience, that they basically want the Browns to just forget that they drafted him in the 5th round and operate as if they drafted him number 2 overall. Like that is the false reality that they want to lock themselves into. They don't want to accept the consequences of Shedeur being a 5th round pick. They want it to be like, hey, if he went in 5th round, but none of those consequences were realized for him, so let's just treat him like a 1st round pick. And that's just not what's going to happen. The Browns aren't going to build this offense around Sherrod Sanders until Sherrod Sanders proves on the field in NFL games that that's what they should do. And what that means for Shedeur is that there's going to be some transitional stuff, right? And we've heard about this whenever you hear Tommy Rees talk about Shedeur, whenever you hear even Nathan Zagura has mentioned this point, where it's like, yes, Shedeur can look fine in 7-on-7s, but there's a lot of just stuff Shedeur's never done that the Browns offense is going to ask him to do on a regular basis. And that means that there's going to be a bit of a longer transition for him. I know people were upset that he didn't get 1st-team reps. One, I mentioned in the video I did yesterday, I don't think there's a single problem with making Sherrod Sanders earn 1st-team reps. I think acting like that's a bad thing is silly. Sherrod Sanders is a 5th-round pick. He's going to have to earn 1st-team reps. If the Browns drafted somebody in the 5th round and their name wasn't Sherrod Sanders and they were giving them 1st-team reps, people would look at the Browns crazy. Honestly, I don't love the fact that we're even giving Dillon Gabriel 1st-team reps at this point of mini camp, right? So I don't think anybody's entitled to 1st-team reps this early in the offseason without proving a damn thing, right? That matters. Like playing good in OTAs is just not something that matters. So I don't have a single problem with that, with them not giving him 1st-team reps. And I actually think it's a good thing. I also think that the Browns have managed or are trying to manage this thing well, because they understand that there are some warts that are going to show when you're trying to get somebody who has not done something their entire career to do something new. And this happens with a lot of rookie quarterbacks, right? I feel old saying it. I feel old saying it, but when I was younger, I'm still young, but when I was younger, the transition from college quarterback to the NFL was a much steeper one than it is now, right? Which meant that we all kind of understood that year one was basically a wash for most of these quarterbacks. Like every once in a while, you'll get a guy who is so talented that it doesn't matter, like a Cam Newton, or so talented and experienced in a pro-style system like Andrew Luck, who played with Jim Harbaugh in college, right? Like every once in a while, you get that guy, but most the time, rookie quarterbacks struggled out the gate, and it was expected that rookie quarterbacks would struggle because they're being asked to do a lot of new stuff. And I think that has to be appreciated if you're a Sanders fan or just a Browns fan, so we don't rush Sherrod Sanders before he's ready. There is a lot of stuff that Shedeur is going to have to do in the Cleveland offense that's going to be a lot different than what he did with Pat Shurmur. Now, on the surface, it seems very similar because Pat Shurmur had some West Coast principles in his offense. I would personally argue that Shedeur's offense more resembled an NFL offense than anything Dillon Gabriel has played in. But to Dillon Gabriel's point, Dillon has played in significantly more Power 5 football games than Sherrod Sanders. Like, he played at Oklahoma, Oregon, 3 years, and then UCF for 2. UCF is Group of 5 football, but that's still higher level than FCS football, which is 2 of Sherrod Sanders' years, right? So Dillon has a lot more experience with football, He played in a Josh Heupel system, though, like a Lincoln Riley system, and then the Dan Lanning offense. And I wouldn't consider those sufficient preparatory offenses for the NFL, even though Oregon's offense, to its credit, as much as I hate watching it, has prepared multiple NFL quarterbacks to be ready earlier in their career than not. So maybe that's what they're factoring in. I hate Oregon's offense, but that's just a personal thing. So we got the argument about if Dylan should also have this same kind of thought process applied to him, or if the Browns, because of Dylan's experience in college, are going to be more comfortable with rushing him. But a lot of y'all don't really care if Dylan Gabriel's good or not, right? The guy you care about is good or not is Sherrod Sanders. And that's why I think he's the most relevant thing to talk about when it comes to this, because if I'm the Browns and we're all Browns fans and we want the Browns to have the best chance at developing Shedeur Sanders to be a starting quarterback, I think the best way to do it is to take your time with it. There's no need to rush him, right? Let him take his time to learn some of the stuff that he needs to transition into, right? One of the big things with Shedeur Sanders is he needs to develop a better bag against pass rushes. That was where I thought his game was not going to translate from Colorado, is his pocket habits. He bounces out, he rolls out, and he's not a great athlete. And if he does that at an NFL level where guys are running at the edge at 4'6", 4'7", then he's going to have a lot of problems in the league, and he's never going to be able to build up the confidence to be the kind of player that he was at Colorado in the NFL. If you want Shedeur to be the best version of himself, the truth might be that you might need the Browns to just let him develop a little bit behind the scenes. You know, I think we all want this Disney Channel story of Shedeur being a 5th-round pick and him fastly rising through the ranks, and by week 2 you can do your victory lap on how the NFL was wrong on Shedeur. But that victory lap's going to be just as sweet in week 2 as it would be in week 12. It really would. Like, that to me does not matter, should not factor in to what you're trying to do if you're the Cleveland Browns. And it looks like the Browns are not factoring that in, which I applaud. Take your time. If you think Shedeur Sanders has potential, if you're watching him throw at the 7-on-7s and you're like, hey, that's a guy who could put a football in the right place with the right amount of touch, and you see a lot there, there's no reason to rush that. The Browns aren't trying to win a Super Bowl this year, right? We don't need someone to emerge because we're like so desperate to win it all this year. That's not the case. We already know what this season is. We have 2 first-round picks in the draft next year. We know when we're aiming to be good again, which is 2027, 2028, right? The 2 seasons after this season are when the Browns are going to really make a push to be in the playoffs. This season, not so much. So what does it matter if we take our time with it, if it's going to be better for those seasons overall? I understand the eagerness and excitement to have something to hope for at the quarterback position, because it seems like the last time Browns fans were legitimately hopeful at quarterback was 2020. And that was a long time ago, right? But rushing it ain't going to make it more likely to happen. It's actually going to produce the opposite. And I'm glad that the Browns do not appear to be rushing it with Shedeur Sanders. It's not going to be popular. People are going to make up conspiracy theories about why the Browns aren't rushing it, all this stuff. But that's what's better for everybody involved. Do not rush this. I think Shedeur Sanders has the potential to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm watching the clips at OTAs and I'm like, yeah, he's throwing some nice footballs. Some footballs that tell me that the accuracy that we saw at Colorado might not be, fluke, right? And I never thought that the accuracy that we saw at Colorado was fluke. So you're just seeing confirmation. I'm like, yeah, the tape was pretty good on Shedeur. I thought it was late first, early second good. And you're seeing a lot of that when he's going up against third, second team guys, but he's also throwing to third and second team guys, right? So you're seeing stuff there that's giving you some validation on how you felt about Shedeur before the draft. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but that doesn't mean you rush it, right? I think because you're seeing these things, because you see the potential, because the talent is so obviously there, you should not rush it. Shedeur's going to have plenty of time to play, right? This season's going to be a long one. They got Joe Flacco, probably going to be the starter. I know they're trying to sell us on Kenny Pickett being the starter right now. I'll believe it when I see it, right? And maybe this might be like Devin Bush last year, where I swore that Devin Bush was not going to play and start for this team, and then he ended up playing pretty good. Maybe this ends up like the Devin Bush thing last year. But I think it's going to be Joe Flacco that starts. And if Joe Flacco starts, that's good news for the other quarterbacks, because guess what? Joe Flacco ain't played 17 games or a full season in this decade, in this statistical era of football, right? Like the last time he played a full season, we played 16 games, and that's a different statistical era. That is how long it's been since Joe Flacco has played 17 games. He will likely play 6 games, right? That leaves a lot of season left. Now, for those people in the Sanders crowd who simultaneously think that Sherrod Sanders is amazing and Dillon Gabriel is awful, if Dillon Gabriel sees the field before Shedeur, it's not going to be like he's going to be the starter for very long, right? If you don't believe that Dillon's good, it's probably not going to be the starter for very long. Kenny Pickett probably going to be traded before the season starts or cut. It's going to be a lot of time for Shedeur to play. And even if the Browns drafted a quarterback in 2026, Shedeur is likely going to get the most of that 2026 season to play, because the Browns are not going to want to rush whatever quarterback that they draft onto the field. So Shedeur, if he plays, keeps developing, keeps showing signs, keeps doing the work that they're giving him behind the scenes, he's going to get a lot of time to prove what he can be. There's no need to rush it. If you're the Cleveland Browns, there's going to be a lot of time to see what Shedeur is. You don't have to do stuff by the end of this season. You know, if you see some promise in Shedeur and your draft slot isn't somewhere where you feel comfortable taking a quarterback, both of them, then, you know, okay, cool. Maybe you trade one of those first-round picks to get into the 2027 draft, right? Like, this timeline is adjustable. You don't have to rush. And a lot of people want the Browns to rush, and that's why I think it's really good that the Browns aren't. So that's what I want to talk about. I think Shedeur has a lot of potential. I'm excited about the potential that Sherrod Sanders has. And I can see it. I see why people are getting excited. Now, do I understand to the extent that people are getting excited over OTA practices? I think it's a bit much. Not even a bit much. I think it's massively too much. The excitement over OTA practices. And I think the Browns even realize that. And that's why they don't really have them do team drills with the ones in public right now, because we are not at a place mentally as a fan base to handle that with responsibility. So I applaud that. But I do think that he has a ton of potential enough to be a starting quarterback. You get that out of a 5th round pick. That's amazing. And because I think he has that potential, I want them to do this right. I want them to take it slow. I want them to get him to a place to where he's comfortable doing some of the transitionary stuff, right? Drop back, step up, tying his footwork to the timing of the route, being a little bit, speeding up the clock a little bit, right? Like, I want him to be at a place to where when he does get on the field, he's ready, he feels mentally confident, and he doesn't feel like he's just being thrown out into the fire, so that he can execute, build that confidence, and get better. People talk about all the time whenever we talk about the Browns quarterback misses. Oh, well, Josh Allen wouldn't have worked out here, or Lamar Jackson wouldn't have worked out here. Guys who are MVPs, right? Wouldn't have worked out in Cleveland. And the reason people cite is because Cleveland wouldn't have been able to handle that situation correctly. And why I think that it's a bit much to say that an MVP at quarterback would not have been good simply because he was taken by a different team. There is some truth in the argument, because what people are saying is that the situation matters. How the team handles that quarterback matters. If they throw him into the fire too early, that matters. We can acknowledge that when talking about the Browns' misses, but somehow there's this cognitive dissonance that happens when we're talking about Shedeur and the Browns, slowing it down, making sure that he's ready, not rushing it. And now we're looking at that as a bad thing, like they're being against Shedeur. The best thing for Shedeur is for the Browns to take their time with him, make sure he's ready. Do not throw into the fire before he's ready. We saw promising signs out of DTR. The Browns threw DTR into the fire before he was ready. He never looked the same again. Let's play this one out. If I think he has potential, let's let it cook a little bit. Let's let it simmer. There ain't nothing wrong with putting something in the oven. You ain't got to throw that shit in the microwave, right? If Shedeur's not the day one starter week one, I don't care. It's not a big deal. If Shedeur's not starting after the bye week, that's fine. Start Shedeur when you are 1,000, not 100, not 80%, 1,000% sure he's ready to play. When you feel like it's a good situation to have him play. Could you imagine if they just imagine if they threw Shedeur in like the Cardinals threw in Clayton Tune? His career had no chance after that, right? Like, got absolutely pummeled, destroyed. There's going to be no confidence after that, right? Just let it take its time, put him in the best situation for him, and be 1,000% sure he's ready. Because if you think he has potential, then that's something you don't want to mess up. We don't got to rush it. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.